What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Shine a Light podcast. Today we return with another one on Formula 1. Last weekend we had a brilliant Grand Prix as Pierre Gasly went on to win at Monza, becoming the first driver outside of the big three teams to win a race since Kimi Räikkönen all the way back in Australia 2013. Now, today we have a lot of interesting topics. Sebastian Vettel is on the move, Sergio Perez is without a seat, and Haas somehow have up to 10 candidates for their seats in 2021. There's also the best and worst of Twitter, as well as my race predictions, which will be very interesting as you guys already know the result when this is actually coming out. But other than that, hope you enjoy. Let's dive into it and kick it off straight away with the news and the silly season. Everybody, especially myself, loves a good bit of silly season. Who's going where? Who's going to be the winners? Who's going to be the losers? And do we have a winner or a loser here? Sebastian Vettel has made the jump from Ferrari to Aston Martin. Currently racing point Sergio Perez, the man that has been pushed out, is gonna struggle, frankly, to find a seat elsewhere on the grid. But is it gonna be a win or a loss for him? And is it gonna be a win or a loss for Sebastian? Now, many of us, and even Sebastian himself, said that he thought he would be retiring at the end of 2020. The last 12 months have been pretty damn horrible for him, so you wouldn't exactly blame the German for heading out of the sport, even if it wasn't on a high. However, everybody knows that he has a true passion for racing, so I'm first of all not stunned to see him go. That's the first thing I'd say. I'm not stunned to see him leave, or I'm not stunned to see him stay, sorry, and I'm excited to see what he can do with this new team. Aston Martin, Racing Point and Lawrence Stroll have now brought in a very big name right there. That is a high potential, heavy hitting, financial backing name that they have brought in. And could they become a regularly competitive team at the front of the grid? Maybe if not with Mercedes, but at least with the Red Bulls from 2021 onwards. Now, does this link to the Sebastian Vettel move? Well, you have to consider that Sebastian Vettel heading to a team like this shows exactly the amount of ambition that they have. A four-time world champion that has raced at Red Bull and Ferrari with the third most wins in history, or fourth most wins, he might be behind Kimi Räikkönen. No, third most wins in history, behind, of course, Hamilton and Schumacher. He is oozing quality. However, obviously, you've got the question, is he off form? Is he actually worse for Perez pound for pound? We've rarely seen Vettel sitting in a poor seat, only all the way back in yes, we've got 2020, but not a good barometer based off the fact that he's not exactly having his best year. The last time he raced in a mediocre team was probably all the way back in 2008 when he was at Toro Rosso, where he vastly outperformed his teammate that would have been Bourdais, where he scored in around the 20s, 30s in the points, I believe, whilst Bourdais got absolutely nothing. And that year they actually beat the Red Bulls of what would have been Coulthard and Webber, so a very impressive performance there. But I'm kind of shifting a little bit here. Do I think Vettel is the right move for Aston Martin? Yes. Now, I've heard arguments one way, I've heard arguments the other way. I've come to the conclusion that I think it's a good move for a number of reasons. First of all, they've had Sergio for a long time, and whilst that does bring a lot of benefits, such as the fact that he knows the team and all the staff really well, and the mechanics, no doubt, it also begs the question, how much more can he offer to the team? He's offered his experience, he's offered his expertise, and I don't doubt that he has a lot of it, but maybe a fresh face is exactly what Racing Point and Aston Martin could do with in a time like this. The F1 grid is currently up in the air, regulation changes in 2022, and Mercedes being the only dominant team, they have a chance to lay the marker down as at least the second best side if they can really get a push on in the next couple of years. Now, granted, they have competition. You look at the Red Bulls, probably Ferrari will come back, and McLaren aren't doing half bad either at the moment, so they certainly have threats around the field. However, you can't deny that and I said this in the video that I did, the latest channel, go check that out, that they bring quality, and Force India and that group have always done the best with the budget that they have, and give them a big budget. Unlike Ferrari, who spends a shit ton and does nothing, I would like, and I think probably would happen, the Aston Martin guys could really spend a little or even a small amount of what Ferrari have and bring out so much more. You give them a lot of cash, they may just do the business. I think if Vettel has a team which has his full backing and full support, which we haven't seen at Ferrari or this year because they're putting their faith behind Charles Leclerc, you have to look at them and say, maybe this could be the perfect pairing. He's a man on the out, he can bring experience, expertise, money. He's a name, he is a household name, that is for sure, and you can't deny that as a driver of his quality, he's going to bring sponsorship money and all that stuff along with him. And in comparison to Perez, it's tough to weigh up. I had an argument in my comments the other day saying that pound for pound, Perez is a lot better than Vettel. However, can you argue that? There's no denying Perez's quality. There's no denying that he's one of the best midfield drivers on the grid and arguably deserved another chance at a top team and might still get one, as you'll see later in this video. But I think Vettel is the choice to go for, even if he's not in his prime days, even if he's a bit off form. I still think just about he gets my vote at least, but I would like to hear who you guys would go for in the comments down below. Now obviously this is my opinion, it's just an opinionated podcast, so leave your thoughts down below. I'd like to know whether you are Team Vettel or Team Perez, because let's be honest, although that second spot at Racing Point or Aston Martin isn't filled, I think we'd all be wholly stunned if Lance Stroll isn't sitting there. Although, to be fair, I've argued this many times, Lance is currently, as of recording this, 4th in the championship behind the big three, which to me shows that he has certainly earned his place at the table and is 9 years younger than Perez, so looks like a good option for the future. And this all brings up another question. What next for Sergio Perez? Now, as it stands, there are 3 teams, or excluding Mercedes, because I can't see Perez replacing Lewis Hamilton at the end of the season. There are 3 teams without driver options, also excluding AlphaTauri, because with Yuki Tsunoda almost definitely getting promoted and probably Pierre Gasly sticking around or Alex Albon getting demoted, that I can't see there being a spot there. The only gaps available will be Red Bull if they decide Christian Horner, I said this in my video as well, Christian Horner decides that he wants something a little bit different, not bringing up another youngster like we've seen Albon, Kvyat. Kvyat lose to Verstappen? Sort of. He lost for a couple of months against Verstappen, but we've seen Albon, Gasly, all of them struggle. Maybe experience would do the trick at Red Bull. Other than that, we've got Alfa Romeo and Haas, who could both be likely getting brand new lineups ahead of the new season. Now, this is a difficult toss-up, that is for sure. And here's the thing, if I was Perez, I'd be looking at my options and I'd be quite upset, to be honest. He's a quality driver, probably better than some of those hitting in strong seats. Renault, for example, I think he's better than Ocon, and I think he's probably, at this stage, probably would take him over Alonso as well, just because Alonso is nearing 40 and will be by the time the season kicks on. So I think you've got to look at it and say, there are other seats out there that he maybe deserved, and granted, he's not going to get them. And this in turn is actually going to have a knock-on effect. As you look at the Haas's and Alfa Romeos, they are likely going to be our housing spots for the full set of Formula 2 talent. Now, as this is being recorded, Mick Schumacher has just taken the lead in the championship over Callum Illot. My prediction currently is we'll see Illot and Schumacher promoted, with Robert Shwartzmann getting 1 more year in the junior category, where I'd be stunned if he doesn't go on and win the F2 championship at the second attempt. The other 2 are in their 2nd year already, so they have a little more experience. Mick has obviously done a test at Mugello this year. I don't know what Illot has done in the past, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a seat somewhere. Alpha they're probably going to lose Giovinazzi unless they decide to keep him on as their 2nd driver. And then Haas probably would appreciate somebody like Illot, something a little bit fresh, something a little bit new. A young and old partnership could be what is needed, and many are actually saying that Perez will go to Alfa Romeo. I'm not a fan of that theory. I think Perez would be better for Haas. He brings cash, he brings experience, and he brings pace. 3 things Haas have not had in recent times. And I think it'd be really cool to see him partner with Callum Illot, a young British quick driver. The 2 could be a really good pairing. Not the US's prime choice as a Mexican and a Brit, but we'll go with it. And so Haas is going to be interesting. We'll get to them in a second, but my current prediction for those Haas seats will be the Perez and Illot, and then Alfa Romeo. Mick Schumacher will take 1 seat. I can't see them going for 2 youngsters, so I don't think Robert Shwartzmann will sit there. I have a feeling, I have an inkling, we may see Daniel Kvyat sit at Alfa Romeo next year. That's just a small theory. Nothing has come out in the press on it, but Kvyat is likely to be out of the seat due to Yuki Tsunoda. He's a solid driver with experience up and down the grid. He's tested with Ferrari before, so knows the Ferrari engine, that sort of thing, and the type of car that it will be. And he's just an all-round quality and experienced driver. He's been racing since 2013 or 2014. 2014 he would have come in as Daniel Ricciardo got promoted. So he's been around the block. He knows what he's doing. So I think that would be the perfect counteract to Schumacher, and also a good benchmark, because Kvyat, he's a mediocre driver. He's not world class. He's not a Latifi or someone like that, or a Pastor Maldonado. He's solid but not spectacular. I think he beats Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Magnussen and Grosjean, to be honest. Maybe Magnussen and Giovinazzi could have an argument for those cases, and I think those three are probably the three, along with Nico Hülkenberg, fighting for that seat at Alfa Romeo, sorry. And I think all of them, and especially Kvyat, would be a good benchmark to see exactly where Schumacher is, whether he is somebody that Ferrari will want in the future, or if he's somebody that they're looking at and saying this isn't really where our team needs to go and what we want to see in the future. But for Perez, because we've gone along, of course, Alfa is the fan favourite for a lot of people. I want to see him at Haas or Red Bull. Red Bull would be an awesome pick to see, just because of the fact that it gives him that shot that he undoubtedly deserves to race at a top team, and this would be the chance that he could have to do that and get some of those wins and podiums that he really deserves. Does Albon deserve to be in that seat as well? I would say yes. Does Gasly deserve to be in that seat? Maybe. If it wasn't for Yuki Tsunoda, I'd say the perfect idea would be to stick Albon and Gasly head-to-head in AlphaTauri next year and let Perez have at least one season in the Red Bull. However, Yuki Tsunoda means that if they were to bring in Perez, one of Albon or Gasly would have to leave the Red Bull team in general, unless we see a shock departure of Max Verstappen, which I can't see him headed to Mercedes, so that leaves really no options in reality. So Perez's likely spot, Haas or Alfa. It will be a shame that we've had another Nico Hülkenberg situation, and part of me is bitter with Sebastian for coming in, but he's a nice guy, he's an excellent driver, and honestly I wouldn't mind seeing him sticking his neck out for a Renault seat. I don't rate Ocon that highly. Alonso is past his prime. I think Perez and Renault, Perez and Gasly would be a mean midfield combo, to be fair. Gasly needs to escape the Red Bull setup, swap him for Ocon as your younger driver. Perez can replace Alonso. I'd say he's quicker. Yes, Alonso is a World Championship winner, but that was, 14 years ago now. So I think that's what I would say. 2022, Gasly and Perez as the Renault driver duo. That would be amazing to see. But all this talk brings us to Haas. Haas are in a weird spot, not been having a very good time as of recent, and they've gone, as I've said before, from rock stars to dickheads. And what next for the team? It's probably time for a shake-up. They've had the same lineup since 2017. Yes, because Esteban Gutierrez left in 2016, bringing in Romain Grosjean from Lotus. And I can't see it going particularly any other way than at least cutting one of those two. The favourite to leave is Romain Grosjean, but personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Magnussen leave as well. And as we spoke AlphaTauri the other week, this week we will speak Haas, and the 10 drivers, I can think there's maybe more than that are in contention for these seats. We're going to kick off with the current two, Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean. I'd say Magnussen's chances at a seat next year at Haas are probably around the 40% mark. He's a decent driver, but he hasn't been spectacular, hasn't done a lot for the team, very hot-headed, and maybe a fresh bit of change would be what the side needs. Romain Grosjean, I would say his odds are around 20 to 25% of racing for the Haas team next year. He really hasn't shown enough of the quality over the past couple of years that we've seen from when he was slightly younger. He's 34 now, I believe, past his prime. He's not like Alonso or Vettel, where he can still scrap it off as being an older driver who was world-class once. He wasn't quite to their level, and it's probably his time to leave the sport at the end of this season. So that then leaves all the drivers that could take a seat. We'll kick off with the ones currently in Formula 1. Sergio Perez, personally my personal favourite to take a spot at the seat. Obviously, he has been kicked out of Racing Point or Aston Martin, is looking for a drive. There are a few left available, and as we said already, he is very, very quick. But there are going to be other options. As I mentioned, we have Daniel Kvyat. Kvyat is probably going to be looking for a seat. We've determined that he could be headed out, and probably will be headed out of the AlphaTauri side, with Yuki Tsunoda getting a promotion in term. So he'd be a good option. Personally, I highly rate the Russian, and I think he's got some excellent potential. Then we head over to Alfa Romeo. Antonio Giovinazzi could be an option to jump ship. I would personally put him ahead of Kevin Magnussen in terms of who I think is better and has more potential. However, I think Giovinazzi probably has an equal chance at around the 40%. Kvyat probably around that 40%, with Perez a 60% chance of jumping in that seat. And that's all of the Formula 1 drivers. Then we have Nico Hülkenberg, currently without a seat over the 2020 season after getting booted out by Renault in 2019. Could he take a drive at Haas? Now, he could have had the option the other year. He was considered but didn't take the drive in the end. I don't think he's going to head there. Maybe there's a 20-25% chance. I think it's low. I think if Hülkenberg was going to go there, he would have gone last year. And I wonder whether we've seen the end of the fantastic German in Formula 1. As if he doesn't get a drive in 2021, I know we've seen Alonso return after 2 years away from the sport. However, I cannot see Hülkenberg being able to pull off the same feat. But then we head to Formula 2. But I think there are at least 5 drivers in contention from Formula 2 that will probably take at least one of the 2 Haas spots. First of all, the obvious candidates, Mick Schumacher. High chance of heading there, depends where the Ferrari bosses want to put him. I expect Haas would take him, and Alfa will definitely take him as well. Then we've got the number 2 spot, we've got Callum Illot. He's probably my personal favourite to have one of the seats at around a 60-70% chance, with Schumacher slightly lower, due to the fact that I think Ferrari would rather have him more man-managed at an Alfa Romeo seat. Callum Illot, young, quick, talented, deserves a spot in Formula 1. Then we have Robert Shwartzmann, equally talented, a couple of years behind the other 2 arguably, but could still be promoted to the team. The Russian is very, very quick, and third in the championship despite being in his opening and rookie season in Formula 2. And then we have arguably what you could call the pay drivers, but I think these 2 have shown quality. First up, we have Louis Delatraz. Delatraz has been in the sport and in the business with Haas for a while. He is or his father is very, very wealthy indeed. I wouldn't be stunned to see him sit in a seat at Haas if they go for a younger option. Yes, he doesn't bring much in experience or development, but he brings bank, and everyone knows how much money talks in Formula 1. The other option, and one that I would actually quite like to see, is Nikita Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin, I believe, currently sits 5th in the Formula 2 Championship, Formula 1, in the Formula 2 Championship, and I think he's a really interesting pick. Now, yes, there is some argument that his father's wealth would help bring him into the team, and that no doubt is true. However, you have to say, he's got a couple of wins this season, I believe 2, maybe even 3 at this stage. He's shown pace in his first season in the championship, and I've been very, very impressed by the performances that I have seen from him, and really think that despite the money, he could deserve a spot and an opportunity in Formula 1. This could be another year down the line, but I don't think it is impossible to see Mazepin partnering up with someone a little more experienced in Formula 1. Then we head to Formula 3. Probably the last of the options, we have Logan Sargeant, the man in a head-to-head battle in the final week with, the man's name has gone from my head, the Aussie driver in Oscar Piastri, him and Oscar Piastri in a head-to-head in Formula 3, fighting out for the title. Would they want to jump somebody straight from F3 to F1? I doubt it, but seeing him as a test driver next year wouldn't shock me. He has no alliances to any of the teams, and he's American, which will no doubt impress Gene Haas, as he wants to get more of their viewers into the sport. So I think that'll be a very good move, even if it isn't one that happens straight away. So if we count that up again, we've got Magnussen, Grosjean, Perez, Hülkenberg, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, I've forgotten somebody, Delatraz, Shwartzmann, Illot, Schumacher, Mazepin, I think I may have said them twice, and Sargeant. At least 11 drivers came up there. There is so many options for this Haas team coming into the 2021 season. I have no clue who they're going to pick. My current guesses are Perez and Illot, but that could very, very easily change. And I reckon we'll see either Mazepin or Sargeant as their young and test drivers for the upcoming season. Delatraz, another favourite. But it's just so tough to pick who's going to be sitting in those Haas seats for the upcoming years. Maybe they keep their faith in Magnussen, I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't, but it wouldn't be stunned to see it happen if they want to keep a little bit of familiarity at the team. Now, I've been flying through that, and I feel like I'm going to have a hard stack, but let's talk about the best and worst of football Twitter. One of my personal favourite parts of the podcast every week once we've ploughed through the news. Now, I've got 4 tweets. Probably going to pick out just 3 of them. Let's stick off at the top. Perez leaves Racing Point after this season as Vettel joins the team. But where do you think Perez should go? This is a similar argument to one we've seen before. I was thinking Red Bull to replace Albon, who'd then return to AlphaTauri to replace Kvyat. Yes, that would make sense perfectly if it wasn't for Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda, I just can't see him not getting a seat next year. And for that reason, I don't think Red Bull will take Perez at their team because it will cause too much of a mess, and probably Albon would be a casualty there. So maybe Albon is driver number 12 that could end up at Haas Alfa Romeo for next year's season. So it's pretty crazy over in that part of the grid. Our next one, we'll go for here. I don't know how everyone else feels, but in my opinion, Mick Schumacher is more than ready for Formula 1. I agree with this one. I think this is a winning tweet, 100%. Mick Schumacher, at the start of this season, or especially in his first season in Formula 2, and then for the first half of this season, I wasn't wholly impressed. I thought his performances were mediocre at best. He was getting ousted comfortably by Schwartzmann and Illot and other drivers among it. But since then, he's pulled out consistent podiums, a couple of wins as well. And I have to say that even though his name obviously gives him an interesting and difficult position at times, as it will for his whole career, I think he does deserve an opportunity, especially compared to the current drivers at Alfa Romeo and Haas, the likely spots where there'll be seats available. I think he needs to have a good teammate battle, win it out, and I really think he will deserve a spot in Formula 1 for next year's season. And our final one, F1's opinion headline said, Verstappen needs to stay patient, his time will come. But I would say he's been more than patient. Mika waited an eternity, Senna had to switch, Button got drawn a bit luckily. Does he have to jump ship for a title? This is a difficult one, so I would say for the moment, staying put is the best option for Max. Now, I think we can all agree and anticipate that Mercedes will win both this championship and the next one, probably with Lewis Hamilton taking the title, and I can't see Lewis leaving the team. However, if a shock move were to appear and Bottas, for some reason, they decide they want to create a god hell spot where they have Hamilton and Verstappen in the same team, as amazing as that would be, it would be carnage for whoever is directing the team. Toto Wolff would have a nightmare on his hands, and I don't think it'd be good for anybody. But I think there has to be an argument for Verstappen that by 2023, he's going to be a few years old. He'll be 25 by 2023. So he's certainly starting to age. Always forget that my camera cuts out for a couple of minutes, but as I was saying, or a couple of seconds, Max Verstappen, he's what, 25 now, or will be 25 by 2023. At that stage, he has to be looking at the Red Bull car and saying, can this team be competitive? And I believe he does have contract negotiations. He's contracted to 2024, so I reckon that is when, if Red Bull aren't competitive after 2 years of the new regulations, he's got to be looking at another drive. Whether it's Mercedes, whether it's Ferrari, jumping ship needs to happen at some stage. Otherwise, Max will not become the multiple world champion that he truly deserves to be. I mean, hopefully we see a more competitive setup after the regulation changes as Mercedes are brought down, and hopefully the pack is closed. We don't know for certain, but that is the hope. If not, Verstappen has to be targeting replacing Hamilton. That is the only option. Mercedes would want Verstappen. Once Hamilton in 2024 would be, 39? His time has probably come for him to retire. They'll need another big name. Verstappen is that man. Partner him up with a George Russell or an Esteban Ocon, or maybe even someone like a Lando Norris, I think would be the play. And I think they would make a very good combo. So for that reason, yes, I completely agree with this. It's time to jump ship. Button actually got very fortunate. You think he was at Honda, thought he wasn't going to get a drive, and then all of a sudden it all went true. Senna, I don't know a whole lot about that far back in history, but he had to switch apparently. And then Mick Hakkinen had to wait until I believe the 6th year of his career until he got a World Championship, where he picked up 2 before retiring early in 2001. But that is all for the best and worst of football Twitter. We are going to do next the big question. The big question for this week is, should reverse grids be done in Formula 1? Now, after the Monza Grand Prix, there is certainly an argument for it. We saw Lewis Hamilton stuck to the back of the grid, the Ferraris floundering, Bottas having an awful race. He was just god-awful that time, to be honest. And then Max Verstappen retired as well, so we certainly had a bit of carnage, and Pierre Gasly came out as our race winner. But do I think that it's time to see reverse grids in Formula 1? I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no for the reason being that I think as the pinnacle of motorsport, it kind of damages its reputation a little bit, to be honest. If you come in and say, we're going to give these people a bit of an advantage, throw them to the front to make it more competitive. Now, I agree, the sport needs to become more competitive with more than just Ferrari are definitely not dominating any races, more than just Mercedes dominating races. However, I do not think the reverse grids are the way to go. Yes, they create excitement, and maybe there is some other way that they could make things more interesting. Maybe they could have a feature race or something. It's a real tough one, because you want to see more competitive races, you want to see more race winners like Pierre Gasly, the first winner from France since Olivier Panis back in 1996. But you have to say that at the same time, it just doesn't feel like it respects the sport to me. Now, yes, it'll bring increase in the sport as people are seeing different winners, but I just don't think people will be excited for a sprint race as they will be for a full, proper race. For the reason being that you just think about it doesn't really fit for me. First of all, it forces teams to have strange strategies, and people will always complain and have issue with winners and how the championship standings end up, as team politics will no doubt become even deeper, as they probably shift one driver competitive for the feature and one driver competitive for the sprint, which create issues in itself, as teams are spreading their drivers, forcing one to be the number 2 even more clearly than we've seen throughout history. And I just don't think it's the right way to take it. Teams will find loopholes. The concept is quite simple. You're saying, we'll make it and everyone will stick with what they're doing and they'll just let it go like so. But as we've seen with removing party mode, it just doesn't work out like that. It just normally ends up punishing somebody other than the big dogs, in this case Mercedes. So I don't think that it is the way to go forward in the sport. Now, I do want to see more winners, and obviously a cash bunch switching will help things, but you have to say at the moment, Mercedes have less cash than Ferrari and are still dominating, which is concerning. But hopefully, in the future, with these regulation changes, we'll see at least a bit of change and a bit of progress. But I don't think the reverse grids are the way to go, at least for the future. Now, to finish off today's podcast, we've got some predictions. When you're watching this video, you already probably know the result, as this is coming out on Sunday, but nonetheless, I thought it would be interesting to do a little prediction. It is Saturday, I have not seen the qualifying results. Here are my calls. My race winner will be Lewis Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas will come out on pole. Lewis will overtake him early in the race, pull off a victory. Podium finishes, it's going to be boring. It's going to be Max and it'll be Valtteri. Best of the rest, I'm saying Carlos Sainz will take a P4, followed by Daniel Ricciardo in P5, and then finally our surprise package for the weekend. I think Vettel's going to have a good race. I think he's going to qualify mediocrely, but then, like in Spain, have a really good performance as he climbs up the grid to maybe around a 6th, 7th place position. That are my calls. So winner Lewis, podiums from Max and Valtteri, Max in 2nd, Valtteri in 3rd. 4th will be Carlos, 5th Daniel, 7th will be Sebastian Vettel, and that is all she wrote for today's podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed nonetheless. I'm thinking I might do more of the clips as I've done in the past, but I'll work on that over the coming week. Leave a like if you have enjoyed, and if you want to come on any stage, shoot me a DM, I would love to have you. Other than that, I hope you've enjoyed. See you next time.